of God and the testimony they had maintained. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? Some, like Garner Ted, say this is figurative, just as Genesis 4:10, where Abel's blood cried out to God. They say the dead are unconscious in the grave. But that this is more than figurative language is evident by the fact that God interrelates with these souls, and He gives them white robes and speaks to them. He did not do this with the voice in Genesis 4:10. Then also you have the verse in Luke 16:19 through 41, where Jesus Himself gives an account of two men that died. And it reads, There was a certain rich man, and there was a certain beggar. It doesn't say that it was a parable. They were specific men. Verse 22, The rich man also died and was buried. And then it says, And in Hades and in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. As you read this account, you will find out that the rich man, now dead and in Hades, was alive, conscious, in the full exercise of his faculties, could remember and could make requests, and he was in torment. He apparently was alive. In 2 Corinthians 5:8, we find Paul saying, We are confident, I say, and willing rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. In 1 Thessalonians 4:16, Paul talks about believing Christians who have died, that they will return with the Lord at His second coming. He says in verse 13, Brothers, we do not want you to be ignorant about those who sleep, or to grieve like the rest of men who have no hope. We believe that Jesus died and rose again, and so we believe that God will bring with Him, with Jesus, those who sleep in Him. How about those that die not believing in Jesus? In 2 Thessalonians 1:9, we don't see a first or second chance after death. Rather, it says, Who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord? The word destruction here is not annihilation, but conscious torment forever and ever. Jesus talks about eternal punishing in Matthew 25:41 and 46, where He says, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. In Revelation 20:10, we find that place is where they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. In verse 46 of Matthew 25, Jesus said, And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. Everlasting punishment and everlasting life are the same Greek word. It compares the conscious existence of those that are in hell with the conscious existence of those in heaven. According to Scripture, both the wicked and righteous shall exist forever.
The Bible so very clearly says that the dead know not anything.
You want to read the next verse.
It says, As one dieth, so dieth the other. It says, in that very day, quote, their thoughts perish.
I got great news for you, because I'm glad you brought that up, because the next verse simply says, if you read it, that the souls, this nephesh there, which rise to God, the soul of the man goes to God, and the soul of the beast goes to the ground.
No, it says, who knoweth whether? I brought that up myself earlier, if you recall.
It's a question.
About the spirit in man. Who knoweth whether the spirit of the beast goeth to the ground, or the spirit of man goeth back to God that taketh?
Not Ecclesiastes 12.
I don't know whether it does. I think it stays right there near the body, but it's totally
unconscious. Okay, but go to
Ecclesiastes
Ecclesiastes 12. The question is asked in 3, but it's answered in 12, where it says it does. And that... that seems to seal that whole argument, that the fact is there is a soul.
No, there are so many dozens of scriptures that prove the absolute oblivion of the dead and the unconscious state of the dead and the fact they're not in heaven.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because...
for 28 years.
I know, and there's 25 ways in your King James Bible to translate the word nephesh. And if you'll take out your Brown Driver and Briggs, the Hebrew lexicon of the Old Testament, you will find under the word ruah, which is another word for breath.
Hebrew for spirit.
Yeah, and you know what? There are at least 12 references, and one of those happens to be the fact of the departure of the Spirit. And it also applies the same kind of... What kind of spirit? God is called a spirit with the same word.
Of course.
The flexibility of that word can include
in the language
that.
For spirit, sure.
Yeah, and you have Elijah coming and laying on the form of the body of the boy that had died, okay?
Let his spirit come into him again, sure.
That's right, and it's nephesh.
His breath or his life.
Okay,
sure.
But the thing is, if he's talking about the body, he's laying on the body. He's not asking God to give him another body.
No. But why did, in the case of the witch at Endor, which of course were outlawed...
She was as surprised as anybody.
Well, but in this case, why? Because those people, of course, did not believe in the so-called immortality of the soul. Did the witch have to conjure up not a spirit, or a voice, but the entire body.
I look at that just
of
the
the
opposite.
departed
Why did
prophet.
Saul go there and ask for it if they didn't believe in it? Welcome. We're glad that you joined us tonight. Our guest is Garner Ted Armstrong. And Garner Ted, we've been talking about some of the things you're teaching on the radio and the way the Christians out there usually read their Bible, and we're trying to compare the two. And we'd like to talk about some of your strong statements about the soul. I would take it from a biblical context, okay? And let's talk with Jesus, where he says, do not fear those who kill the body,
Of course.
but are unable to kill the
soma.
suke.
Unable to
soul.
kill the suke, or the psyche, right?
Okay,
Right.
but rather fear him who is able to destroy.
Both.
Yeah, okay, but the thing is that you do have both. And it doesn't mean destroy in the sense of annihilation. The Greek word is
I don't
punish.
know about that.
Well,
I
Kittle,
don't
you
know
want me to
about
quote Kittle?
You just read it. Says, fear him who has the power to destroy.
And the word-
Both soma suke in Gehenna fire.
Okay,
He'll destroy it. It
and
will
that's what
not
we're
be
talking
living
about is the
forever.
evidence. Let's take Kittle here, who is one of the prime authorities when you are using the tools to get at the words which you said we need to get at. And he says this is not a simple extinction of existence, but an everlasting state of torment and death. And the word
He's not an
Gehenna,
authority.
now you've come through and you've said Gehenna, you don't believe there's any eternal punishment either. Is that correct?
There is absolutely eternal punishment. Yes, there is no eternal
Does it last
punishment.
forever? Is it?
Yes, it lasts forever. The punishment is death.
But
By
you're saying
fire.
extinction.
The most horrible death that I could imagine occurring to anybody, and your heart goes out to people who die in flames. But that is the second death of which the Bible speaks. It says very clearly that the wicked will be ashes under the feet of the righteous in the last chapter of Malachi. Very clearly talks about the distinction, or I should say the extinction, pardon me, of the wicked, and that they will be burnt completely up.
Now you are going to hear Malachi chapter 4, verse 1 and verse 3 quite a few times from Garner Ted. Let's take a careful look at these. First of all, the setting is the day of the Lord. If this refers to the time when Jesus comes back, for chapter 4, verse 3, a solid explanation of the words, they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, could possibly mean one of two things. First, on the day of the Lord is going to come back and conquer his enemies. If there is a great war, it's possible that this simply means there will be physical death, that they will be ashes under your feet. It does not mean that they will be eternally annihilated. Secondly, if we actually take a close look at the Hebrew says this: the word ashes refers back to anything that is worthless, something that can be cast away. In other words, the wicked will be ignorable because they are worthless. They are of no threat to the righteous. In verse 1, the words there where Garner Ted says, the wicked will be burnt completely up. It does not say that. The New American Standard, correctly following the Hebrew translation, says, all the arrogant and every evildoer will be chaff, and the day that is coming will set them ablaze. The word literally means will be set on fire. They will be set ablaze. It does not say that they're going to be burnt up, that they're going to be annihilated, they're going to be extinct. Rather, as Jesus said in Matthew 10:28, do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy, which is the word punish, both soul